Let's get analysis now from Xavier Abu-Eid. He joins me from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. He's a former Palestinian Liberation Organization advisor. Javier, I don't know how much you caught of this, but I mean, the breaking news is that the crossing in Rafah, well, Israel says it is open, but actually they're not allowing any medical evacuation. So that sounds like a kind of a technical excuse. But the fact that so few people have gone through, and the fact that Israel can, at a moment's notice, unilaterally say we're not allowing people to go out, does it have too much power in this situation? Isn't there supposed to be a board of peace? Isn't there supposed to be overseers who go, well, actually, this is not helping our peace deal?
Neil, good morning. This is Israel textbook for any agreement signed with the Palestinian side. And this is something we have not witnessed just over the past 3 days. It's something that we have been going through since the Oslo Agreement was signed, always to find a technical detail, a loophole to go against the spirit of the agreement. Now, when people were told that 50 people would be allowed to exit Gaza every day, accompanied by another two, so 150 people, it was still years away from what we needed in terms just of medical evacuations, almost 20,000 people. And yet, Israel is violating the agreement from day one. I would also add to this that over the past few hours, we've had almost 10 Palestinians killed in Gaza, which reaches the number of people, as you were mentioning a few minutes ago, to over 500 people killed since the ceasefire agreement was reached, in addition to another Palestinian killed in Jericho here in the occupied West Bank overnight. So in other words, we are not seeing anything new. What surprises me is that there are some members of the international community that try to present what's going on now in Gaza as a step forward, while at the same time, they understand and they have complete record of Israel's violations of every single agreement.
You just said it there. The deaths continue. Israel's killed another 12 people in just the last few hours, 4 children. That's not supposed to happen in a ceasefire. Under the agreement, there's supposed to be free movement across the Rafah crossing, humanitarian aids to come in. All these things we've just discussed, they're supposed to be part of the peace deal. None of them are happening. Where is Donald Trump? Because this is his brainchild. Why is he not saying, hey, my reputation's on the line here. I put this deal forward and you're not adhering to it?
I'm certain that President Trump and his envoys would like things to be different, but they are not willing to spend the political capital needed. There are others that have been trying their best. And I would always mention this trio of Turkey, Qatar, and Egypt, that they have been doing tremendous efforts to calm down the situation, to turn the genocide in Gaza into a situation of meaningful political negotiations to end Israeli occupation, having a clear political horizon. We're seeing other negotiations in the region that those 3 countries are pushing. But what we see from the Trump administration and what we are tend to believe at this stage is that they just wanted to take some of the pressure the international community had on Israel off their weights in order to try to advance a sort of alternative to the United Nations called the Board of Peace, and at the same time make Palestinians have a choice. And the choice is the following. You can either continue talking about ending the occupation and a Palestinian state and having your rights honored, including the right to self-determination, and you're not going to have our support and the Israelis will continue killing you, or we can reduce the Palestinian question into a mere humanitarian aspect, and then we may be able to help you. And yet, Israel has continued to kill Palestinians. So Neil, let's think about this from a different perspective. What would have happened if over the past few hours, 12 Israelis have been killed by Palestinians? The international community would have stopped. We would have had strong declarations, and of course, relations would not be as they were before, diplomatic relations, I mean. But when it comes to Palestinians, I think after 70,000 people killed on this genocide, it's very clear that the value that Western powers give to Palestinian lives is much lesser than they give to others, particularly Israelis.
Donald Trump's Board of Peace, which is meant to oversee the redevelopment of Gaza and everything really moving forward, is it very important at this moment that that gets established and very quickly, because it would potentially contain lots of international voices, some of whom might be more critical of Israel? would it make a difference if that board was in place right now, that there would be critical voices saying this isn't acceptable?
Well, I think even in the design of the Board of Peace, you can see that there are different levels. So I think the voices you're referring to are not at the top level of his decision-making process. And I would say particularly that the countries that are most interested to solve the situation in Gaza, but to solve it with, again, a political horizon, with the prospects of having an end of the Israeli occupation, which is the root cause to what we are witnessing now in Gaza, the West Bank, and in the rest of the region, to be clear. I don't think that President Trump is really willing to listen to those voices. I mean, just think of this detail, that we have now a 25 years old kid whose only CV or item in the CV is to be an anti-Palestinian activist at his university, being one of the people drafting the future of Gaza according to the Board of Peace. I mean, that's a reality we are facing today. That's how, in theory, according to the Trump plan, the destiny of Gaza and Palestine is going to be drawn.
One of the huge criticisms of this peace deal when it was first put down on paper was that it was too vague. There were too many details that were missing. And we're finding now that that has left a vacuum for Israel, as it controls everything that's happening in Gaza, to interpret it in the way that it wishes. Is that not going to leave Hamas, Palestinians, those who support Palestinians in Gaza, very cynical about to what extent Israel can be trusted to follow through on future elements of the deal, because there is so much yet still to be ironed out?
Neil, I was an advisor to the Palestinian negotiations team. I took part in the preparation for some negotiations and part of the peace process. And I can tell you clearly, if you don't have an agreement with clear accountability measures, with clear deadlines, and with a clear role for the third party, for the mediator, it is doomed to fail. And that's how Israel takes every single agreement. But in the point you're presenting, I think that there are two elements to it. So from one side is the vagueness that allows for every problem to be solved in bilateral US-Israeli negotiations. At the same time, you have the other element, which is this vagueness, which unfortunately is included in UN Security Council Resolution 2803, which allowed for the Board of Peace to be created, is officially fragmenting Palestine. For the first time, you have a Security Council resolution that splits the occupied Palestinian territory between Gaza and the West Bank. The West Bank, including occupied East Jerusalem, is not even mentioned there. So this is an Israeli interest. This is something Israel has been looking for. So in other words, this whole prospect of a Board of Peace without a Palestinian political agency in charge is not just aimed at taking some of the weight off Israel's shoulders, but it's also about denying, or let's put it in a different way, reducing or diminishing the inalienable Palestinian right to self-determination into a conditional aspiration. And this is the narrative that they are using.
At a price later on. Fascinating to get the benefit of your expertise as an advisor. It's really appropriate to what we're discussing here. Thank you, Xavier. Xavier Abu Eid, former Palestinian Liberation Organization advisor.